Hello boys and girls, and welcome to another day of learning. My name is Miss Jan and I'm your host, and this is Miss Casey. She will be your teacher. Today we will be learning more about the Incas. Let's look at today's objectives. You'll be drawing pictures, dictating, and writing simple sentences to represent details or information about the Incan civilization. You will retell orally important facts and information from the Inca, Machu Picchu, a lucky discovery. You will compare and contrast orally and in writing cultural elements of the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca. Later in the lesson, you will need a pencil and a piece of paper. Please go ahead and get that now. I hope that you have a great time learning even more about the Incas. Have fun.
Hi, welcome back. We're going to continue learning about the Inca today with a read aloud. Remember to have that piece of paper and pencil that Miss Jan asked you to get. Now let's get started. Okay, where are we? The previous read aloud was about the Inca, who lived in the lands that stretched along the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. These are the present-day countries of Bolivia, Ecuador, Argentina, Chile, and Peru. So let's look here at Peru. See Peru right here? That's where we are in our story today. Great. So now we're going to look at our vocabulary that's going to be in our text. So the first thing we're going to look at is the word challenging. Challenging. Our first word is challenging. Challenging is when something is difficult or hard. For example, putting this puzzle together, this 100-piece puzzle together, would be very challenging. Our next word is existence. Existence, the state or fact of being real as opposed to imagined. Like with this picture, we did not know the existence of some stars before the invention of the telescope. Our next word is raging. Raging. Can you say the word raging? Great job, raging. That means moving forcefully or violently. Like in this picture, the army of men with swords drawn were raging toward their enemy. Raging. Our next word is ruins. Ruins. Can you say that word? Great job, ruins. Those are things that remain after something has decayed or been destroyed, such as a building or a city. So ruins are things that remain after something has been decayed or been destroyed, such as a building or a city. Like in this picture right here, those are ruins. There were no buildings left after the fire, only ruins remained. Our last word is trek. Can you say the word trek? Good job, boys and girls. Trek. A trek is a long, difficult journey. A long, difficult journey. Have you ever been on a long, difficult journey? The trek along the trail from Maine to Georgia lasted for months. So that long, difficult journey lasted for months. Remember, boys and girls, that because the Inca did not have a written language, there's no record of this time period in history. There's not a record to let us know exactly when it happened. Since there were no records, much of what we know about the Inca is because of the work of archaeologists like this man, Hiram Bingham. An archaeologist is a person who studies ancient civilizations by examining the remains of old buildings, graves, and tools dug from the ground. Archaeologists study these remains to learn how people lived a long time ago. The act of finding something other than people don't know about is called a discovery. And many archaeologists can spend their entire lives searching for just one special piece of history. Some discoveries may be very small, and in some cases, discoveries are amazingly large. Today, we're going to learn about the fascinating job of the archaeologist Hiram Bingham and his amazing discovery. So the purpose of our text today is to learn about Hiram Bingham, that archaeologist we just talked about. And in our read aloud, he's going to travel to South America to explore near the city of Cuzco and discover the ancient Incan city in Peru. So let's listen carefully and find out the name of the ancient Incan city that Bingham finds. Now we come to the amazing tale of an archaeologist named Hiram Bingham, who stumbled upon the entire city while looking for something else. Hiram was interested in learning more about the Incas' struggle against the Spanish invaders. Do you remember the strangers and metal in the Inca story about the runner? Do y'all remember the story about the runner? What did they call those strangers in metal? That's right. These men were Spanish conquerors who attacked the Inca emperor long ago. Unfortunately, the Spanish conquerors, remember, those are people who fight to take over. Remember, conquerors are those who fight to take over. The Spanish word for conquerors was conquistadors. Destroyed a lot of the Inca culture when they attacked the Inca Empire. So Bingham had to depend on legends and folk tales for some of his information. One of these legends told that the last Inca emperor, Manco II, had built a city called Vitcaz, using it as a headquarters to fight the Spanish invaders. The old story hinted that Vitcaz might be down the Urubamba River toward the jungle in the area now known as Peru, South America. Peru is high in the Andes Mountains, which includes some of the world's tallest, most challenging peaks. Bingham decided he would begin his exploration for information in the ancient city of Cuzco. His only other clue about Vitcaz was the city was said to have been built where a huge white rock overlapped a pool in a river. Of course, Bingham didn't know if all of these so-called clues and legends were true. There might never have even been a city. Bingham went looking for Vitcaz anyway. In Cuzco, Bingham started out with a small group of companions, riding mules along roads that soon turned into trails. One night, the small travel party camped near a river. A party is a group of people who do something together. So the travel party was the group of people who were traveling together. What other kind of party do we know? Yes, a birthday party. That's also when a group of people does something together. A bit later, a stranger appeared unexpectedly. He was a local police sergeant whose tiny house was nearby. "My name is Ortega," he said, holding out his hand, and Bingham shook it, replying, "I'm Hiram Bingham." When Ortega heard of Bingham's interest in old ruins, he said, "Senor, I have heard of some ruins. If you like, I will take you there. However, it is quite a climb. Remember, ruins are things that remain after something has decayed or been destroyed." Bingham answered, "If you take me, I can get there." They set out the next morning while the rest of Bingham's companions waited behind, not willing to climb dangerous slopes because they were worried about the rumors of ruins was not true. After walking for nearly an hour, Ortega led Bingham down to a cliff's edge. Below lay a silver gray river, raging into whitewater rapids. The water in the river was flowing very fast and looked dangerous. Bingham could hear it roar as it raced along below. "Urubamba River," said Ortega, casually. "We're going there." He pointed to a shaky-looking rope suspension bridge with wooden slats that looked as if it would collapse under the weight of a bird. "Does that bridge sound sturdy and safe to you?" "I think I would be nervous to cross a bridge like that." Bingham took a deep breath and started out onto the bridge. He picked his way carefully, testing each board before he put his weight on it and praying the ropes would hold. The bridge swung and swayed wildly with every step he took. He told himself, "Don't look down. It will only frighten you more." Finally, he was across, and then Ortega followed. For hours, they walked through dense forest. They came to an open spot where some Incas lived in huts and grew food on narrow, level strips of land called terraces. Those terraces, carved into the mountainside by their Inca ancestors, had been used this way for centuries. Ortega and Bingham shared lunch with these people in a hut. It was clearly an important occasion to their hosts, who seldom saw visitors. After lunch, Ortega and Bingham climbed an additional 1,000 feet and emerged from the trees onto a level place. Although vines and bushes covered much of it, he could see stone walls had been built to make more terraces. Looking beyond, he saw a remarkable sight. "Look, Ortega," he shouted. Spread out across the mountaintop lay an enormous set of stone buildings, their wooden roofs long since gone, but their carefully fitted stone walls still standing. The dramatic setting 2,000 feet above the raging river, and with another higher mountain peak thrusting out behind them, took Bingham's breath away for a moment. Ortega asked, "Senor, is this your lost city of Vidcas?" "I do not know," Bingham replied, "but whatever it is amazing." Indeed, it later became clear that this was not the city of Vidcas, but this discovery, a city that seemed to float among the clouds, was even more fantastic. With no record of its existence, meaning no one knew the city was there, Bingham named his discovery after the towering mountain, Machu Picchu, which means old mountain in the Incan language. The Inca living nearby in the mountains did not know who had built the deserted city, nor did they know what had happened to the people who built it. Later, Bingham wrote that Machu Picchu might have been the last hiding place of Inca royalty, built so high that no Spaniard had even guessed it existed. Or perhaps the city had been some special religious center for the Inca. He never learned the answer. A few weeks after reading Machu Picchu, Hiram Bingham stood above the watery pool next to a huge white rock that was carved with Inca designs. Hiram Bingham had found the ruins of Vidcas, the place he had been seeking, but it was the discovery of Machu Picchu and its dramatic setting that would bring Hiram Bingham worldwide fame. As for Machu Picchu, its beauty remains today. Photographs have made it so famous that the thousands of visitors make the long trek or journey there from all over the world. We now know that Machu Picchu was used as a summer capital for earlier Inca emperors. where the royal court would go in the hottest months. Scientists found documents written by the ancient Inca that cleared up the mystery of Machu Picchu. Maybe someday you will be an archaeologist who finds answers to mysteries like the mystery of Machu Picchu. That was a great story. Okay, so now I want you to think about our story that we read. And I'm going to ask you some questions. So our first thing I want you to think about, Bingham hoped to find the city of Vitkus. Remember, he talked about finding the city of Vitkus. Did he find that city? Think about that. Did he find that city? Right, he did. But he didn't find it the first time he went looking. He found a different city first. What was the name of the city that Bingham found first? The one he named after the old mountain they had climbed to reach it. What was the name of that city? That's right, Machu Picchu. Great job. What is the name of the people who built Machu Picchu? What is the name of those people? We've talked about those people in other stories. Right, the Inca. Where is Machu Picchu? Remember, we found it on our globe. Where is it? You're right, in the Andes mountain of Peru, South America. I'm going to ask you a question now, and I'm going to give you a minute to think about that question. Then I want you to talk to somebody in your house about what you think the answer might be, okay? If there's nobody there, I just want you to think about it. But if you can, I want you to have a discussion about this question, okay? So with someone in your house, talk about some of the difficulties that Hiram Bingham faced on his journey to Machu Picchu. Would you like to be an archaeologist like Mr. Bingham? Why or why not? So think about the difficult things that Hiram Bingham faced, and if you would like to be an archaeologist like him. I'll give you just a few seconds to think about that. Those are some amazing answers. I think being an archaeologist would be very interesting. That's a question that you can think about some more later after the show. So in the read aloud you heard them say, photographs have made Machu Picchu so famous that thousands of visitors made the long trek there from all over the world. And we talked about our word trek earlier. So think about the word trek. Can you say the word trek with me? Trek. Very good. So remember, a trek is a long and difficult journey. The people making a trek are usually walking to a place that is difficult to reach, due sometimes to river or mountain crossings. I wore out a pair of boots on a trek from one side of the mountain to the other. Have you ever worn out a pair of boots on a long trek? In today's read aloud, Hiram Bingham made a long trek into the mountains of Peru. Think about some of the other read alouds you have heard. Do you remember any other long treks that people made? Do you remember any other treks from stories that you have heard? Right, the Incan runner made a long trek, and the Aztecs looking for the sign also made a long trek. What's the word we were just talking about? Right, trek. Great job. So let's go back and look over our vocabulary words that were in our story today. The first word was challenging. Do you remember what the word challenging meant? Challenging was difficult or hard. Can you think of something that is challenging in your life? I know that if I had to put that 100-piece puzzle together, it would be challenging. This word is existence. Existence is the state or fact of being real as opposed to imagined. We did not know the existence of some of the stars before the invention of the telescope. raging. Say that word, raging. Raging, good job. Raging is moving forcefully or violently. So these men in the army with swords drawn were raging towards their enemy. Ruins. We read about ruins in our book today. Things that remain after something has decayed or been destroyed, such as buildings or a city. We found Hiram Bingham found the entire city of Machu Picchu. There were no buildings left after the fire. Only ruins remained. And then there's our word, trek. That is a long, difficult journey. The trek along the trail from Maine to Georgia lasted for months. So today we learned about Hiram Bingham's big discovery of Machu Picchu. I am so glad that you joined me for this lesson. I hope to see you very soon.
Oh, what fun. Great information. Thank you for joining us today. Please join us again for more reading fun. All rights and credits for today's lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these valuable resources. The views and opinions expressed in this lesson are those of the Core Knowledge authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Mississippi Department of Education. Thanks, boys and girls. Have a great day.